it's me, J-Star. Yeah, so when I was younger, I used to adore My Little Pony, okay? And, it wasn't my main thing. It wasn't my main thing. But, as a little girl, like, if you were 6 and you didn't rock with My Little Pony, what were you doing? What were you doing? My favorite was Pinkie Pie, right? And, if you know My Little Pony, you have to know about bronies. And if you don't, basically bronies are just like male My Little Pony fans that like the show to an unhealthy extent. It's like kind of weird. Okay. Normally when people have like an unconventional interest, I'm like, if it doesn't hurt anyone, I don't care. Like, as long as you're happy, But the specific brony I'm talking about today hurt 8 innocent people. So I'm not saying all bronies are bad, but let's talk about this one, okay? So, Brandon Hole was a normal kid. He was like your average white boy. He liked fishing. He was just normal. He was normal. Except for the fact he had OCD. And there's nothing wrong with having OCD. He was diagnosed with OCD at the age of 3. 3. Like he was like a baby. He was still a baby. And yeah, there's nothing wrong with OCD, but 3 is kind of crazy. I've never heard of that. Maybe that's common. I've never heard of that though. I've never heard of that. When he was a kid, he used to insist on wearing 3 pairs of shorts at a time, which is like okay, that's normal. That's like, I guess that's normal for a 3-year-old. But Brandon would also constantly rock back and forth while watching TV. And if he didn't do it, if he didn't complete his daily routine, his day would be ruined. If he didn't do his daily routine, do not talk to him. He's in a bad mood. And he's not and I don't even want to say bad mood, because it's not like when you're in a bad mood, like you're just grumpy. Brandon was not that type of person. At the ripe age of 4, Brandon's dad killed himself. And this definitely affected him. That's traumatizing, because that's terrible. But his parents were in a heated argument, and his dad was like, if you take the kids, I'm gonna off myself. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that. He's like, yeah, if you take the kids, I'm gonna off myself. And the mom was like, go ahead. Brandon's mom, Sheila, was like, go ahead, see if I care. Which is like, okay. And so, Brandon also had a lot of anxiety disorders. He had panic attacks. He had panic attacks, and he really, really wanted to kill himself. Not at 4, but he, throughout his life, he really, really wanted to kill himself. And Sheila's just wonderful, because all she wanted in the end was to protect her son. And, she fought hard. She fought for it. She fought hard for it. In the end, that's all she wanted. But yeah, Brandon had a lot of anger issues. This is what I mean when he's when I say he doesn't get grumpy like you, okay? Because in 2013, Brandon was 11, and he had been arrested and charged with battery, criminal confinement, and intimidation. Him and his mother's boyfriend, Keith, were playing outside. They were having fun. They were having a jolly old time. And then Keith decides to spray Brandon with the hose, which is he wasn't soaked. He was just a little wet, But this was enough to throw Brandon into a rage. He ran into the bathroom, locked the door, and destroyed everything inside. His mom, Sheila, comes running. Allegedly, she picked the lock, and Sheila became Brandon's target. So he starts punching her, kicking her. He bit her ankle. Her ankle. And then he runs to the kitchen and gets 2 knives and almost, I don't know if he stabs her or almost stabs her. But the police come right on time. Right on time. So she was fine. And in court, they put him on probation. They didn't keep him in jail. They just put him on probation. That was it. He was just on probation, which is like, now my son, if it were me, he's my son, but if you try to stab me, no, you're staying in jail. Like, no. 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 And in 2014, Brandon got into a lot of fights. So, okay. Brandon was punching and kicking his mom, but not like in a toddler way. In like throwing hands, like you know, like literally like swinging at her. Like, Brandon got in trouble at school for fights a lot, to a point where the school was like, no schools would take him. No schools would take him. So his mom had to homeschool him. Like, it was that bad. His mom had to homeschool him. There's nothing wrong with homeschooling. But he was just so troubled that he had to be homeschooled. Okay, Brandon was in counseling on and off. But this didn't really work because Sheila was really worried about his mental health declining. She thought it was getting out of hand. And he was being obsessed, and they asked him if he was okay. Yeah, his mental health was getting out of hand. He grew an interest in mass shooting, okay? And he was being obsessed. Not obsessed. Obsessed. And during this, they asked him if he was sympathetic towards the shooters. And he was like, no, I think it's a waste of time doing something like that. It's a hassle, and he didn't want to cause any trauma to families, which is like, okay, oh, it's a hassle. That's not saying he wouldn't do anything like that. If it were easy, okay. Yeah. He was like, oh, it's a hassle, which is dumb. It was dumb. But at least he didn't want to cause any trauma to any families, which is like, okay. What am I talking about? Oh my god. Anyway. But this was a lie because he would like joke about it to his friends. He was like, okay. And they brushed this off. They didn't care. They were like, okay, whatever. Have you met, like, teenage boys joke about this all the time. They joke about serious stuff like mass shootings all the time. And I'm not brushing it off as like, oh, boys will be boys. I'm saying they brushed it off as boys will be boys, which is not okay. Don't ever do that. Why do boys should not get to get away with things just because they're a boy. They're still people. And they're joking about someone else's lives. It's like, no. But yeah. So yeah, Brandon was homeschooled. And with that, he was really, really isolated. Like, yeah, he was isolated. And besides the shootings, Brandon was obsessed with My Little Pony. He was a self-proclaimed brony, and Brandon had more My Little Pony merch in his room than I did when I was 5. Besides that, the only difference between him and I was I liked Pinkie Pie and he liked Applejack. Well, no, because he kind of liked Applejack in a way where he thought he was in a relationship with her. And when I tell you later how far this went, oh my god, it's insane. But besides all that, Brandon was doing really well. In 2020, he got a job at FedEx. And, he moved out of his mother's house, which is like the unthinkable for a brony. And, But this facade was actually fake. It was a facade. Duh. And Brandon was actually worse than ever. So, I don't know, he either quit his job or got fired. But he ended up moving back in with his mom. So, he's really staying true to that brony, you know, in his heart. He's a brony at heart, okay? Okay, that was mean. On March 2nd, Sheila went with Brandon to an army surplus store that he frequented. You know, he would like wear the merch. He would wear the merch. He would eat food there. I don't know. He would wear the yeah. He really liked that store. But this specific day, he went to that store with the intention of buying a gun. And he was 18 and he had his own money. So, I don't know. I really don't know why. Like, people are like, why did she go with him? Why did Sheila go with him? Why did she let him buy the gun? You know when adults say, if you're gonna drink, I'd rather you do it in the house? I think she just wanted, at least she knew what he was doing. At least she knew, right? So yeah. Thankfully the store was out of bullets, but he bought the gun anyway. On their way home, they saw a bumper sticker that read, it encouraged people not to take their own lives, which is like, great, don't take your own life. And Brandon says under his breath, there's your sign. And Sheila says, if that's your sign, I'm taking your gun. Which is like, great, take the gun, do it, great. Okay, Brandon wanted to die by suicide, by cops. He said he'd point the gun at them and they were guaranteed to shoot him. So basically what Brandon was going to do is he'd go to a police station, point the gun at him. You're pointing a gun at a cop, of course they're going to shoot you. Because, let me not say that, but yeah. So when they got home, Brandon went to sleep and Sheila decided to go to the police and ask for help. Sheila was worried that he would follow in his father's footsteps and kill himself. Like, she was worried because she's his mom, of course. So they ended up going to Sheila's house and they took his gun and they put him in handcuffs and they took him to the hospital. Brandon gave up his gun without hesitation. Like, take it. He was like, here, take it. But he begged them to turn off his computer. He didn't want them to see what was on it. He didn't want it. And, okay. Sheila hoped they'd have him in a 72-hour hold at the hospital. But that wasn't the case. He was there for at most 2 hours. He wasn't there. Like, 2 hours. 2 hours. And Brandon calls her and is basically like, okay, am I walking home? I need to stop doing that voice. But am I walking home? Or are you coming to pick me up? You know? Such an attitude. Like, such attitude. He was not happy with her. During his stay, Brandon had talked to a doctor and he denied wanting to die. He said while he was there, Sheila was hoping her son would be red flagged. Red flagged is a law in Indiana which prohibits anyone from buying or having firearms. And maybe then, if he were red flagged, that would have stopped what was to come. An officer said that since Brandon had surrendered his gun, there were no needs to continue the case. They had opened a case on him. But since he gave up his gun, they thought there was no reason to keep the case going. Which I guess is true. Because they had just thought he wanted to kill himself. He wanted to unalive himself, you know? And that was the end of it. That was it. The end of story. And maybe it was. Maybe that was the whole story at that point. But even then, he should have been red flagged. He should have been red flagged. Because, of course, he's going to find a way to get his hands on another gun. But So how Brandon didn't want them to go through his computer, they did anyway. And when the FBI went through his computer, they had found a lot of neo-Nazi content, like Nazi stuff. And Sheila met with them in April of 2020, and this is recent, like, but yeah, they tell her that Brandon shows all signs of a mass shooter. And Sheila's like, okay, go arrest him. What are you waiting for? And so the agent and state trooper went over to their house again, and they asked Brandon about buying the gun, if he used 4chan, and if he liked My Little Pony. And Sheila said that Brandon felt traumatized because they asked him about My Little Pony. They questioned him because what's not to love about My Little Pony? He literally said it was how neo-Nazis talk to each other, and Brandon said that he hasn't talked to anyone using neo-Nazi rhetoric. Not all... Okay. There's a lot of white supremacists in the brony community. And I'm not saying like all bronies are bad. I'm sure there's some good bronies, but a lot of bronies were white supremacists, which is weird because they're horses. They're horses. They don't have a race. The only thing that would be considered a race in the My Little Pony universe is maybe like an earth pony, unicorns, stuff like that. But why are there white supremacists? Why are there white supremacists for 4-year-olds? I don't understand. But yeah, they found it. They found it in his computer. He was denying all this. He was like, no, I'm not a Nazi. I'm not a Nazi. I'm not a Nazi? What are you talking about? They found it in his computer. Dude, we saw it in your computer. What are you doing? Why are you lying? We saw it. So, a few months after this, Brandon bought 2 more guns. He decked them out in My Little Pony stickers. And over this time, Brandon had become more and more unstable. He had called up the agent that was asking him about the My Little Pony and the Nazi stuff, and he confronted him. He confronted him about it. He didn't like it. He didn't appreciate it. But yeah. Sheila had taken him to counseling, and when he was seen, he said that he had zero empathy for others, and he did not care about their lives, about the lives of others. And which is kind of a switch up, because earlier he had said he had not wanted to cause trauma to other families, but now he doesn't care. It was like a switch up. And with another social worker, Brandon had said that after he was interrogated by the state trooper and agent, he tried to hang himself, just like his dad. And they feared he would try to end his own life. It didn't even cross their mind that he would try to kill someone else. It didn't even cross their mind. They were just worried about him. They weren't worried about, which is crazy because he had tried to kill his mom when he was 11. Crazy. April 15th, 2021, after work, Sheila had brought dinner for her son and family, and they ate, and Brandon went off to take a bath. He took a bath, and then he went to bed. Well, that's what Sheila thought. Sheila thought he was going to sleep, but Brandon was actually hopping on Facebook and posing with his guns. He was posting pictures of him with his guns. I don't know if I mentioned that his guns were decked out in My Little Pony stickers. I probably did. But yeah, he had a bunch of they were kind of cute. But this is serious. This is serious. Yeah. But yeah, he's posing with them, and he captioned it. Hope that I can be with Applejack in the afterlife. My life has no meaning without her. After that, he sneaks out and drives to the FedEx facility he worked at. I want to point out, his car was also decked out in My Little Pony stickers. It was a cute car. I'm not even gonna deny that. But yeah. At 11 p.m., Brandon got out, and he started chatting it up with security. He worked there. I think they knew him. And then he just started to open fire at anyone and anything. And witnesses said that they thought it was someone was having car trouble, Like, they heard the gunshots, and they were like, oh, car trouble. Which is, like, kind of crazy. But, their first thought wasn't gunshots. Someone's shooting at my job. So FedEx has a strict no phones policy. They had to leave their phones in their lockers, and it made it really hard for people to say bye to their loved ones or call the police. So 911 calls are still flooding in, and some people are saying that there were 2 shooters instead of 1. This is either because some people say they saw another man confronting Brandon. I couldn't find too much on that. But Brandon was everywhere. He was everywhere. So, like, if 911 calls, people were calling, like, hey, this guy's over here. Other people are saying, this guy's over here. So maybe they could have thought there were more than 1 person. I don't know. But, the whole thing lasts 4 whole minutes. And at the very end, Brandon ended up shooting himself too. By the time the police got there, he was too late. When they found him, he was on the ground with his two My Little Pony guns side by side. There were 4 people dead outside and 4 people dead inside. The ages ranged between 19 and 74. Okay, the victims were Kylie Smith, who was a 19-year-old. She was one of 10 siblings, and she was bubbly and happy, and people said she always learned from her mistakes. Okay, I'm sorry if I pronounced any of these wrong. I'm sorry. Samaria Blackwell, she's also 19. She was a straight-A student, and she was the baby of a family of 6. She was very intelligent. People said she was very smart. Matthew Alexander was a 32-year-old man who always made it a point to make everyone's lives easier. Okay, I'm sorry if I say this wrong, but it's Amarjeet Sikon. She was a 48-year-old woman, and everyone said she was such a hard worker. She could not sit down. She was the breadwinner of her family. Jasvinder Kaur. Yeah, I'm really sorry. I probably am, but I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry if I say these wrong. Everyone said he was charming. She was charming. She was a 50-year-old. Yeah, she was a 50-year-old woman. Everyone said she was charming. She was just so sweet, and she just had a great personality. Amarjeet Chahal was a 66-year-old woman. It was her birthday when that took place, and she had been working a double shift so that she could take the day off the next day to go to her granddaughter's wedding. She didn't make it to that wedding. Jaswinder Singh, I'm really sorry if I say any of these wrong. A 68-year-old man who said was always smiling. He didn't even need to work. He just liked being around his friends. And John Waysett is a 74-year-old man. He was an Air Force veteran, and when he retired, he took a job at FedEx to make ends meet. Again, I'm sorry if I mispronounce any of these. My heart goes out to the victim's family. They have gone through the unimaginable. Losing a loved one is a loss you can never get back, and God forbid anyone goes through something like this again. His mother, Sheila, went on the news. Brandon's mother, Sheila, went on the news to say that to apologize to the victim's family. She said, "I won't grieve his death. I can't. I grieve the victim's deaths." Also, even though they found neo-Nazi content on his computer, they aren't sure the crime is race related, which is like, it's because he isn't alive to say that's the only reason they don't know. I'm not too sure, because like, you're joking, right? Like, it probably is a little bit racially related, but a lot of the police say that this was one last way to for Brandon to prove his masculinity to others, because the officer was like saying, I don't know, maybe he felt threatened because the officer was like, "Oh, you like My Little Pony?" Maybe because people think that's a little girl show. Maybe he was like, "No, I'm a man and I'm gonna prove it." Maybe that's why. I don't know, but yeah, I'm so sorry if I got anything wrong. If I missed anything, please let me know. But yeah, bye. Hey, I'm editing, and someone wrote a song about Brandon. I don't know if it's about Brandon, but it's named after him. So I'll just play that. Oh, I'll just play that really quick.